Cuphead is already known as one of the hardest games of all time, so I thought, why not make it worse on myself? I played the entire game only using my right hand. Now why? Why would I do this to myself? Well, to be honest, Cuphead got too easy. Having so much love for the game, I needed to find new ways to play Cuphead. And I found one. Let's set up some rules. First, no using my left hand. Obviously. Second, I have to make it and complete every single level on the regular mode. And finally, all of this is by myself. No co-op. For this to work, I can't let any finger go to waste. Here are the keybinds I used. First off, my pinky would be holding down right trigger to shoot. My ring finger is responsible for EX attacks on the right bumper. My middle finger is on the Y button to dash. And my index finger will be how I jump with the X. And finally, my thumb will control my joystick. Let's go. Wait, hold on. I need to be honest with you guys. I recorded this video almost a year ago today, July 16th, 2024. But at the time, I had worse equipment and I wasn't comfortable in front of the camera. And looking back on it, I'm not happy with how it turned out. And that's why I'm here today in the Big 25 re-scripting it. Also, shout out Chandler Live. I saw his video. He's a way better Cuphead player than me, and it inspired me to redo this video. Alright, sorry. Now you can enjoy the video. First, I go talk to the apple-headed man over there to get 3 free coins in order to purchase Roundabout, one of the key purchases in this run. With my newly found weapon, I use to go tackle the root pack. My strategy heading into this was to barely move at all, trying to parry the worms as much as possible, which ended up working as I defeated the potato without taking any damage. Next, with the onion, I spam EX roundabout attacks on it so I can get as much damage as possible to knock it out cleanly. And finally, the carrot. I instantly lost 2 health to the lasers, forgetting I don't have the smoke bomb, and then out of nowhere, I was trapped in a corner, with the laser hunting me down, but a glimmer of hope came by as I had accidentally hit my EX attack to save me from the laser, to then knock out the carrot and the root pack. First boss down, no deaths, and an A-. So far so good. Now, after my amazing victory over one of the hardest, grueling bosses in the game, just kidding, I decided it was time to attempt my first run and gun, being Forced Follies, to save up coins for later use. As I am still getting used to my keybinds, I kept dying again, and again. I kept making silly mistakes that keeps losing me HP, not jumping, accidentally dashing, etc. But eventually, after 9 attempts, I did it. At this point, I was thinking to myself, if I took 9 attempts to beat the first run and gun, how am I going to defeat bosses like the dragon or the devil? Oh, just you wait. With the coins I had just saved up from this run and gun, I used them to buy smoke bomb, another key ingredient to this recipe of a run, while saving 2 coins for the future, eyeing either spread or crack shot. Widely being considered the easiest boss in this game, I went into Goopy Legrand with no stress. The first 2 phases, piece of cake. But when I got to the 3rd phase, I might have gotten too confident, going down to 1 HP. As I spam roundabout while jumping, the tombstone eventually perished, making my 2nd boss with no deaths, if you don't include the run and guns. Next, I went down to these 2 amphibians who, to some, are considered the hardest boss on Aisle 1, and personally, one of my least favorite bosses in the game. As I breezed past the first stage, spamming roundabout, I realized I had forgotten to equip smoke bomb twice. And to my surprise, I had made it to the final stage with all 3 of my hearts, a feat I didn't even do in Goopy Legrand or the root pack. As I gambled and rolled the bull, I maneuvered and weavered through the lasers to eventually get me through the knockout with no HP lost, landing me a B rating. Now, when I said people thought Ribby Croak was the hardest boss in Aisle 1, I may have lied a teensy bit. As for me, the hardest boss on Aisle 1 without a doubt is the first ever plane level in the game, the Berg. This level was daunting going into, knowing there will be multiple projectiles coming after me at once. On my first attempt, I had managed to squeeze by getting into the final phase with 1 HP, ultimately dying to a star in the final phase. Moving the plant with one hand wasn't easy, using the wrong thumb for moving and having to go small a bunch in his level. And eventually, on my 5th attempt, I came out on top with the knockout on Hildebird. This boss has never been an issue for me. All you have to worry about is parrying the pink seed and you should be set for the rest of the boss. On my first attempt, I managed to get to the final phase with 2 HP, which quickly turned into 1, but we don't gotta talk about that. The final phase is arguably easier than the first though, only having to dodge the white puff things? Whatever they are. And watch out for the vines on the platforms. With a combination of staying on the middle of the platform and shooting roundabouts the opposite way, I was able to easily defeat this boss and complete Inkwell Isle 1 in just under 20 minutes. I picked up the lost coin stuck in the trees and ventured my way up to Inkwell Isle 2. Inkwell Isle 2 is when shit gets serious, and Beppy is just another roadblock in the way. The first phase is literally the easiest part of the entire game. 99 out of 100 times, I would take more damage on Goopy Legrand's first stage than Beppy's. Beppy's second stage was also fairly easy, just dodge the balloon dogs and I'm golden. The third stage can be tricky sometimes with the roller coaster at the bottom combined with the horseshoes, but in my case, I accidentally lose a heart when dashing the wrong way into the roller coaster, entering the third stage with only 2 hearts. When I'm in the final stage, my only goal is to kill as many penguins as possible since I don't have spread shot to kill the third stage. My goal with killing the penguins is in order to try not to move at all, so I don't have to make any weird movements with only my hand. But all in all, the fight ended shortly after the penguins appeared, where I used roundabout EX attacks to help me be victorious over Beppy in my first attempt. Going into the Jimmy the Great, this fight is one of the most daunting bosses in the game, and some might consider this as a top 5 hardest boss in Cuphead. Well, on my first attempt, I had managed to get the sword in the first phase, which is the easiest of the bunch. It also took no damage in the second phase. And to my surprise, I had beaten the third phase with taking no damage at all. But it's not over yet. The last 2 phases are the hardest of the 5, so I had to lock in. And lock in I did. I took down the imposter Cuphead without taking any damage, moving on to the last phase more confident than I have ever felt. I was able to tank 2 hits from the pyramid beam before securing the knockout onto Jimmy on the first attempt. Again. Moving on to Candyland, this was easily the least difficult boss in Inkwell Isle 2. It doesn't even compare to the others, but you never know what might happen. The first mini boss I got was the Cupcake, which was the hardest in my opinion, but getting out of the way with no damage was a good sign. Next was the Candy Corn, where he slides across my screen. I had accidentally taken damage right at the end of this phase. The third and last mini boss I got was the Waffle, taking it down without a sweat. And now, the Candy Queen herself comes out of her castle to fight me. Unfortunately, the nuisance of the head and the peppermint was too much for me to handle with just one hand, and I unfortunately died. No first attempt this time. My second attempt wasn't any better either, dying in the exact same spot. But finally, during my third attempt, I kept making mistake after mistake, accidentally dashing. But in the end, this little old cup was the winner and left Bonbon crying. The Bird. In my opinion, the hardest boss in Inkwell Isle 2. The sheer amount of projectiles being launched at you at once in this fight is really what makes this so difficult with one hand. For the first 2 phases, all I needed to do is to hug the left wall and I shouldn't be hit at all. Taking one more hit during the baby phase brings me down to 1 HP for the last part, where Wally's on the stretcher throwing trash up at me. I swapped to the bombs for this last stage. Unknowingly, I had accidentally flown right on top of the Dr. Birds and got hit by the pills and died. On my very next attempt though, I had gone to the baby phase with 3 HP, and using my bomb attack on it, it had gone down. The last phase, 3 HP. It was a cakewalk. After a minute of the bomb barrages and EX attacks, and the bird goes down as the doctor seasons him up. The fight being easier than what I had thought it would be. I had to do the Funhouse Frazzle run and gun specifically for the dragon fight. I needed to save up coins for weapons that'll help me later on. I'm gonna be honest, I don't like this run and gun. This is my least favorite in the whole game. And after a few kiss deaths and a death, I made it with all the coins. I went into the shop with the plan to buy Charge Shot for the last stage of the dragon fight. But as I entered, it wasn't there. So, I bought Lobber, then Charge Shot, then entered the Grim Matchstick fight. For the first phase, I only used Roundabout to almost guarantee a hit on Grim every single time. I'm used to having a floor beneath me when I fight, so not having it this fight costed me a hit early on. But even though Roundabout was incredible, I tried using Lobber for phases 1 and 2, especially for phase 2, making it incredibly easy to hit Grim. On my third attempt, I had finally made it to the menacing third stage, with only 1 HP though. Now, I just have to focus up and... never mind. Let's try that again. Attempt after attempt, I got more mad by the minute. But after 10 minutes when I started fighting this boss, I had finally bested Grim. Not even using Charge Shot, I only used Lobber. And now, the home stretch. Inkwell Isle 3. Going into Inkwell Isle 3, I go for the first boss I see, the B Squad, or Rumor Honeybottoms. I've had some difficulty with this boss in the past, so I was hoping for a clean, smooth fight this time. I was hoping, at least. This fight is hard. Using Roundabout in the first phase almost made it impossible for me to hit the Officer Bee without getting hit by the other Worker Bees. Before the first phase is even over, I accidentally went down into the honey at the bottom to leave me at 1 HP. And on my first attempt, I couldn't even get past the first phase. I had decided that it would be in my best interest to do another run and gun to save up for Crack Shot. So I trotted back to Inkwell Isle 2 to tackle Fun Fair Fever, and after 6 attempts of getting hit by cannonballs and condiments, I beat the level. Unfortunately, Crackshot wasn't even in my shop, forcing me to buy Converge and complete another run and gun. I headed all the way back to Treetop Trouble in Inkwell Isle 1, where I ran my way to victory on my third attempt, and bought Crackshot.
Bravo!
Time to go get my get back at the B. Crackshot helped me tremendously where I finally got past the first phase, taking no hits. The one thing I struggled with while playing with one hand was for sure my movement, making the balls and the triangle attack extremely hard to dodge against. Even though the second phase had projectiles that were hard to dodge, I had survived on 1 HP and made it to the third stage, where I forget to even jump and I die before the phase even starts. After 13 attempts and 20 minutes of straight pain, I did it. I bested the Queen Bee. Just shooting and looting. This boss is the easiest boss in Inkwell Isle 3 in my case. When I start to approach the end of the first phase of Captain Brinybeard's fight, I take damage. But not to worry, I haven't lost confidence at all, being the last stage is probably easier than the first. Not much movement is involved during this fight. Using my newly bought Crackshot, I easily knocked out Captain Brinybeard on my first attempt. Projectiles. So many projectiles. That's why I consider Calamaria as the hardest boss, maybe, in the entire game to beat with one hand. I entered the second stage with only 1 HP remaining, where I realized that I have to spam out of turning into stone while there are electric projectiles after me. This is bad. I have to disposition my hand to spam, then quickly reposition my hand on the controller to be able to control the plane smoothly. But things were looking up as I managed to get the final phase on my 5th attempt. The tight corridors and the turning into stone made the third phase just as annoying and difficult as the second. But just after 7 deaths on my 8th attempt, I made it to the final phase with 3 HP. Then 2 HP. But things were still looking good. This was my first time clearing phase 2 without taking damage, and as I shot Calamaria and dodged the skull orbs and spikes, I had finally beaten her after what I thought was the longest 10 minutes of my life. This is another pretty simple boss, not too hard. Even though I took damage missing a parry in the first 5 seconds and took more damage, I decided to reset my first go and ran it back. On my second attempt, I passed the first stage easily, but the baby bottles in the second phase got me and took me down to 2 HP. The third stage is the easiest in my opinion. All you have to do is keep shooting and keep smoke bombing through the wave. The last stage is super short. Sally's an angel in the sky and her umbrella spins and targets us on the ground. You can simply just jump and dash across the umbrella to dodge it and secure an easy knockout. Trying to avoid Dr. Call's robot as much as possible, I decided to fight Werner Werman, or Werner Vermin, however you say it. My first couple attempts were rough. I couldn't even make it past the first phase, and I thought this was supposed to be an easy boss. On my third attempt, I finally made it to the second stage with 3 hearts. The first 2 were just a warm-up. After I got trapped by a wall of fire in the second stage, taking me down to 1 HP, I unfortunately died in the third stage, forgetting that the pink orb split when they touched the ground. On the very next attempt though, I remembered they split and got the knockout. Oh boy, this is the big baddie of Inkwell Isle 3, widely considered as the top 3 hardest boss in the game regularly. And I had to do it with one hand. The first attempt was a disaster. I immediately took damage and shortly died after. But this boss looks like it's gonna take a while. But during the second attempt, I managed to squeeze by the first phase with 2 HP left, feeling I could get this done shortly. But then I took damage, and died in the third phase. This became a pattern, continuously dying in the third phase 4 times in a row, and even died in the second stage once. Then, finally, I took out Dr. Call and his robot out on my 8th attempt, and only about 8 minutes. 3 bosses left. This train fight is pretty simple. It's just textbook for every single monster, with the hardest phase being the last. The first phase is a breeze, taking the ghost down with no damage. During this fight, I used Crackshot in order to hit the pumpkin in the sky, so it doesn't move my platform at all, so I controlled it at all times. The giant skeleton from Clash Royale was also very easy to take down. I was so confident I would be able to breeze past this boss in one attempt and into the King Dice fight, and I did, not taking any damage during the fight. And now, for the end. All bets are off on this one as I roll a 3 to get more health. I enter the cigarette fight, confident as can be, even though I accidentally lost health. But eventually I easily took it out in the end. Then, I roll a 1 and a 3, landing me on the 6th space for more health and the skeleton horse fight, which I knock out without taking any damage. Next, I accidentally rolled a 2 instead of a 1, but I got one of the easiest mini bosses in the game, Ballerina Roulette Table, I think? Maybe. I guess I stand corrected because I took damage for the first time ever on this boss, and then I lost another health point. I think I got too confident, but in the end, I knocked it out. I rolled to get to the 9th space, which I thought didn't have the monkey on it, but it did. The monkey takes way too long and is kinda hard to dodge, making it the hardest mini boss in my opinion. After I lost 1 HP, I was in shambles, and I quickly died after it. On my next attempt, I got back up to spot 8 where I fought the 8 ball. The easiest mini boss. I beat it easily and then challenged King Dice himself. All I have to do is parry my way to victory and continue to shoot King Dice. The parrying is super easy during this fight, and I managed to knock King Dice out on my very first try of the final fight. Next up, the Devil. I refuse to join the Devil's team, and it's on. The final fight. On the first attempt, I got both fire moves, which I have trouble doing with just one hand, and went into the second stage with just 1 HP, where I dashed into the void. At this point, I decided if it would be beneficial for me to buy Spreadshot for the last parts of the Devil boss. Spreadshot is very good against the Devil, being able to hit every shot in his giant eyes, while the EX attacks can hit all projectiles on his eyes as well. And on the very next attempt, I made it to the second phase with all of my health. Then the Devil gets very upset. As the third phase starts, I immediately shoot and kill one of the purple monsters. Usually, without killing them, their projectiles are very hard to dodge, but with only one there, I can deal with it. I take 1 heart from the bird and 1 heart from the skull, and I'm on to the 4th and final phase. the crying. Tears start to drop from the sky as I'm isolated on just one platform where I unfortunately die from the tears pretty early on into the phase. 2 attempts later, and I'm back. 1 HP. Final phase. Last boss. I'm desperately shooting the spread shot directly up at the devil as I'm dodging the poker chips and the tears, and after a couple seconds, he's dead. A knockout. Beating the game under 2 hours and 20 minutes. Wow, that's it. I beat Cuphead with only one hand, and some of it was fun, some of it was painful. But all in all, it was a blast. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.